Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is AMIR bin YUSOF, my matching number is 280711, and I will be talking about the introduction, the audit objectives, and the nature of revenue and receivables. The revenue cycle is a way of describing and maintaining the procedures used for the accounting process of tracking and documenting transactions from beginning to end, which includes the accounting process for recording revenue received from services or products given by the company. The revenue cycle is the process of receiving a customer's order, approving credit for a sale, determining whether goods are available for shipment, shipping of the goods, billing of the customers, collecting cash, recognizing effect of this process on other related accounts. A revenue cycle audit should examine the billing process from the beginning to end, which includes scheduling, insurance verifications, charge input, coding, posting of payments, and all routine follow-ups. Auditors can identify the flaws in the revenue cycle and work on making improvements by taking a close look at each component of the revenue cycle. To appropriately evaluate the results of the auditing procedures, the auditor should have knowledge of the organization's entity and the industry in which it operates before conducting the audit. The revenue cycle inherent risks must be evaluated and tests must be done to see if it is free from any fraud or error as part of a financial audit. The cut-off dates for specific types of sales and the pressure from management to raise revenues are tied to the inherent risks for this cycle. The auditor can offer some assurance that the company's revenue are accurately documented by carrying out so-called substantive tests and tests of control. Next, for the audit objectives, the overall objectives of the audit of the revenue cycle is to evaluate whether the account balances affected by the cycle are fairly presented in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles (GAAP) by obtaining sufficient and relevant audit evidence for the transactions and balances. The key issues in auditing of sales and receivables are to ensure that the sales transactions are neither overstated or understated, and the transactions are legitimate. The transactions exist and are collectible, and provisions for doubtful debts are adequately provided. The nature of revenue and receivables varies on the type of industry, but the information and transaction flows in the revenue cycle are almost identical. It usually starts with the receiving order from the customer, which is then followed by the processing of the order and getting the goods and services ready to be delivered to the customer. The business then prepares the invoices for the billing of the customer. Only then the goods and services will be shipped to the customer along with the invoices. After the goods and services have been delivered and received by the customer, the business records the transaction in the appropriate accounts after the payment is made by the customer. According to the International Standard on Auditing, ISA 315 paragraph 11, the auditor shall obtain an understanding of the entity's relevant industry, regulations, and extraterritorial elements, including the relevant financial reporting framework, before starting the audit of the entity's revenue cycle. The entity's nature includes its operation, ownership and management, types of investment plans by the entity itself, and the structure and funding of the entity. Through understanding the entity's nature, the auditor can understand the types of transactions, account balances, and disclosures to be included in the financial reports of the entity. The auditor will also examine the entity's accounting practices and policies within the business to clarify if the entity's policies are aligned with the existing financial reporting standards and is suitable to be practiced and used in the industry. Identifying and having a clear understanding on the entity's goals and plans, as well as any associated business concerns that could lead to a risk of significant misstatement, can assist the auditor in the audit of the entity's revenue cycle. That is all from me. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good day everyone. My name is SABRINA ATIQAH, matric number 280934, And now I will be presenting the accounting system and control activities. Implementing and appropriate control activities on the accounting system is important for sales and receivables accounts as they will influence the whole business. A sales function begins with an order placed by the customer. The payment from the customer needs to be authorized according to the credit policy and authorization. Next, fulfilling the customer order with a bill of lading and delivering the goods. Upon delivery, a sales invoice should be sent to the customer via electronic communication such as email. Lastly, the whole transaction will be recorded according to the accounting standards through sales journals, ledgers, and accounts. Each accounting system and control activities are different. Hence, it will be audited differently based on the audit aim of each component. There are 6 components that need to be audited. The first one is the customer's order. The customer's order is the most important document to perform the audit process, since it is the first transaction trail of the documentary evidence. The aim to audit a customer order form is to value the occurrence of the transaction. The auditor should verify whether the order form is made from a real personnel and not fictitious character made up by a company just to boost the sales order. The second one is credit approval. This process is usually assigned to an independent department besides sales department to avoid enabling the credit sales to the customer with poor credit risk. The auditors need to ensure that the credit sales can only be amounted up to the authorized credit limit. When auditing this process, it is important to focus on its accuracy, valuation, and allocation. That's all from me, and I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SOFIA binti SYARANEE, metric number 280493, and I'll continue the presentation of accounting system and control activities. The third is issuing goods. Approved sales order will be sent to the warehouse where the storekeeper manage the stocks. Then the storekeeper will prepare the stock for delivery, where the delivery of goods is accompanied by delivery documents such as bills of lading. An auditor should underline the cut-off, the occurrence, and the completeness in issuing goods while performing the audit process. Next is invoicing customer. An order should be properly invoiced with complete and correct details of the item ordered, customer shipment details, total paid by customers, and others. The auditor must ensure that there are no duplicate invoices generated, nor there are any fraudulent sales transactions. This concludes that the auditor objective while performing audit process on the invoice are completeness, occurrence, and accuracy. The fifth one is recording the sales. It is crucial for an accountant to record the sales precisely, as if the record is wrong, it will disrupt the financial statement of the company. If an auditor found out the mistake, it may lead to material misstatement and will be subjected for further audit. Therefore, the auditor will look for 4 things, which is the completed recorded transaction to ensure its completeness, the value of sales recorded to ensure its accuracy, the period recorded when transaction occur to ensure its cut off, and to check whether there is any overstatement or fictitious sales to ensure that the record is occurrence. Lastly, collecting cash sales and receivables and adjustment to sales and receivables. The term of collecting cash sales and receivables include receiving cash, depositing cash in banks, and recording the receipts. Meanwhile, adjustment to sales and receivables cover components such as sales return, discount, and write-off on receivable accounts. The idea to audit this process is to verify its occurrence. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Muhammad SYAZWAN bin Ismail. My metric number is 20761. So I will proceed the developing of audit plan. We have 4 steps to developing audit plan. First is understanding entity to identify inherent risk. Second is obtaining an understanding of internal control over sale and receivable. And third is assign risk of material misstatement. And lastly is design further audit procedure. So next, we proceed to the first step of developing of audit plan. Understanding entity to identify inherent risk. Understanding the entity help to determine the potential misstatement of the financial report. The 3 items that we need to know is the type of product or service, the target market and customer, pricing, return, discount, credit sale, and payment policy. Next is obtaining an understanding of internal control over sale and receivable. Inherent risk related to sale and receivable can be reduced. The auditor may be determined if the internal control over sale and receivable are implemented and appropriately and effectively. The auditor may also make inquiry seeking further detail from management. For example, review documents such as budget and sale document to determine whether the second of pre-number document is appropriately recorded. None is assessing risk of material misstatement. The auditor should perform risk assessment procedure that are foreseen to provide a reasonable basis for the identification and assessment of the risk of material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud, and design further of the procedure. For example, the auditor may determine whether the sale are susceptible to risk of overstatement due to the pressure to the report high profit. And lastly, it design further audit procedure. Further audit procedure type of control and substantive procedure. The auditor should determine the test to be performed based of the assigned risk level. For example, if the auditor lacked adequate data to assess whether the internal control system in place emphasize reducing the risk of material misstatement in the sale and receivable record, they should incorporate a test of control. Thank you.
Hi, my name is NAJIHAH SAHADAN and I would like to present about performing further audit procedure. Substantive testing is known as the phase of an audit where the auditor gathers sample to identify any material misstatement in the client's accounting record or other information. The goal of substantive testing is to provide reasonable assurance about the validity and correctness of financial reporting or to identify any material misstatement. Therefore, designed to obtain audit evidence about the completeness, accuracy, and validity of the data produced by the accounting system. There are two main categories of substantive test procedure, which are analytical procedure and test of details. Analytical procedure entail comparing several financial and operational data such to examine if trend and relationships are consistent. The auditor tendency to look at the gross profit margin and the amount of progress that the company has experienced in 1 year. As part of the revenue cycle audit checklist, the auditor should examine the organization total market capacity if its facility and staff were fully utilized. Plus, the auditor must also evaluate the account receivable account to verify that they are not growing faster than sales. This is one to provide the company may experience cash flow issue in the future. For substantive test of details, it goes to available the auditor's finding regarding the amount of money held in accounts and the figures shown on the client's document. Professionals will gather evidence to back up their assertion about financial situation. Okay, next, these are the audit objectives for the auditor's substantive procedure. Among its important to sales that I have listed is to demonstrate that sales have occurred, to determine whether sales are complete, and to confirm the sales transaction cut off. For receivable, among its important that I have listed are to demonstrate that receivable exists, determine whether a collection is complete, and to ascertain whether the client is entitled to the receivable. These importances of substantive auditing procedure comes from their increasing focus on detailed financial documentation. For the conclusion, revenue cycle is the accounting process of tracking and documenting transaction from start to finish, including the accounting process for recording revenue received from service or goods provided by the company. The auditor examines the gross profit margin and the amount of growth that the company has experienced in 1 year. Each accounting system and control activities are different, so will
be audited differently based on audit for each component, such as customer order, credit approval, and invoicing customer. Developing audit plan give understanding entity to identify inherent risks, obtaining an understanding of internal control over sales and receivable, assessing risk of material misstatement, and designing further audit procedure. And for the last one is substantive test procedure are the best to implement because these tests will help to find any errors or misstatement in the account or documentation associated through gathering samples. So that's all from us. Thank you.